Live from San Diego, California.
We go live to the newsroom with your host
for Nick's Nerd.
What's up, guys? It is 1,000,000,000 degrees today. That's for damn sure. At least in my place. So if you hear a fan, that's why. I do apologize. I'm trying to stay as cool as humanly possible. Also had to deal with a snake today. I don't know if I told you guys this, but a couple weeks ago there was a frog in my kitchen, and the inevitable happened today. There was a snake in the kitchen today. So that's what's going on. We're in the throes of summer, if you will, but hopefully the heat won't last too long. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Hopefully next week I'm not just sweating to death. That's not a promise though, right? Obviously we have no control over that. Anyway, before we get too deep into the reads, as always, thank you guys for the follow. Thank you guys for the listen. If you're new, welcome in. If you've been listening, welcome back. Friends, family, fans, as I like to call you all. Welcome in. As always, we talk a little bit about movies, a little about TV, and a little bit about video games. Just depends on what's going on that week, this week, the week before, in the nerd realm. So, without going too deep out of the reads, because we're going to dive in, let's start, right? What's going on in the video game world? What is going on in the video game world? No surprise here, but the Nintendo Switch is now the 5th best-selling console of all time, behind the PlayStation 4, the Wii, and the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 is at like 150 million units. I don't think any console's ever going to catch up to that ever again, to be honest. That's a wild number if you think about it. The Wii, though, the Switch, has 111.08 million units sold. 111. If anything, the Switch may catch up to the PS2. That's the only console, I think, because it's so universal, right? Kids, adults, old people, young people. It literally is transcendent in terms of who can play it, who can use it. There's literally no equal to it. But I digress, right? It's obvious. It was obvious that it was going to happen that way. But no, it's a good thing. We've also learned that Beyond Good and Evil has finally hired a head writer, which doesn't make sense because I thought it had a head writer. I guess that guy, that French dude that always comes up on stage from them is just like the concept dude. I'm just very confused as to how this game didn't have a head writer. Like, I don't understand. I'm very, very confused. Anywho, that's happening, so I guess that game is finally going to come out. In 6 more years. At this point, it's like a game that we all think is going to come out, but never actually will come out. I mean, at least. I don't think I'm the only person that thinks that. Square Enix has also announced that they're looking to sell off more studios. I guess a report came out that the reason they sold Crystal Dynamics and some of the others was because they were bleeding some of the other studios dry. Then I don't know what the hell Square's doing. They want to sell off more stakes in some of their other studios. Cannibalized, is the term that was used. David Gibson, who is a games industry analyst, was listening to Square's latest earnings call, but that the selling Crystal Dynamics, Eidos, and Square Enix Montreal was phase 1. Phase 2, they're going to review their portfolio, and they just want to be able to move resources around better. I wonder what studios they're going to sell off next, and who they're going to keep. I don't know. It's interesting that Square is trying to offload all these different things that they've had. EVO 2022 was this past week, and a couple things we learned in the fighting game world. SNK has announced a new Fatal Fury game. There hasn't been one in the Fatal Fury franchise in nearly 20 years, so that's a little surprising to a lot of people. A new Tekken was teased. It started with a video from the original Tekken of Kazuya throwing Heihachi off a cliff, literally ripped from the original game, polygons and all, and then quickly cuts to clearly a modern cutscene version of Kazuya's face, and it says next or ready for what's next or something. I don't remember. But clearly it's either teasing Tekken 8 or something else potentially related to Tekken 7. We don't know. Just that a new Tekken project is in the works now. And then we also learned that Arc Systems wants to be more proactive in terms of getting more IPs made into games. Arc Systems is, of course, behind Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive. They also announced that rollback netcode was coming to Fighter Z, along with next gen, current gen, whatever you want to call it, versions of the game. But they want to branch out more, according to CEO Minoru Kiduka. He spoke with IGN at EVO, and he wants to pursue more partnership opportunities. And especially more so with Western audiences, is what he said. He said, quote, "We need to expand fighting communities through IP. In the future, if we have such an opportunity, we're actively pushing to collaborate with new IP owners," unquote. He wants to have ones that are planned and developed in the U.S., and like I said, more ones that aren't just global audiences like Guilty Gear or Dragon Ball Z, which obviously has more global appeal than some other things. We've also learned that Activision and COD or Call of Duty Infinity Ward are going to be holding a showcase for Call of Duty on September 15th, which is, I think, just a few days before the first open beta on PlayStation. They're going to show off gameplay. They've already showed off the first new map, which is a Grand Prix map based on like a racing location. No other details were released, but just obviously we're going to learn a whole lot more about Warzone and Modern Warfare 2 and everything like that. We've also learned that, so Netflix has kind of gotten on this big games initiative, which is kind of weird that they'll invest in that, but not shows that people actually want to watch. But now we're learning that less than 1% of its subscribers play games. 1.7 million Netflix subscribers are interacting with the service's games on a daily basis, and this is per CNBC. That equals to less than 1% of their 221 million total subscribers. CNBC got all this information based off Apptopia, which is a global app tracker. There are 24 games on there that include adaptations, multi-platform indies like Moonlighter, and they want to have other games based on some of their other IPs. But I think it's if you don't even have 1% of your user base using it, I don't think it's something they should continue to invest in personally, especially if they're hemorrhaging money like they claim. But I digress. We've also learned Pac-Man is going to get a live-action movie from the producing team behind the Sonic film, which, if you want anyone behind your video game adaptation, I guess they're the ones you want to have, right? I mean, makes sense. We've also learned that Super Punch-Out which released on the Super Nintendo nearly 30 years ago, has a two-player mode that was just discovered. The game released in 1994, of course, a sequel to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And if you have a controller plugged into the two-player slot and you hold the Y and R button, it essentially makes it possible to play as the second player and use special moves, which is wild. Strange that no one caught this until now. It's very very interesting indeed, especially that the developers never said anything in this nearly 30 years. WB's Multiverse game, which is technically an open beta and their Super Smash clone, recently had its first season delayed, and we're now learning that it actually has over 10 million players, which is wild for that game to have over 10 million players already. Looks like it's doing well, even though some people are only playing as a certain amount of characters, from my understanding. There was a Nintendo Direct today all about Splatoon 3, which drops next month. Had almost 30 minutes of pure information. It's rare we get that in a Direct for one game. And then, final bit of gaming news. Not a whole lot, since Gamescom is coming up in a week or two. I want to say, when's Gamescom this year? Gamescom will be next week, the 19th. In 2 weeks, on the 24th. I don't know why I read that date wrong. That was when it started. No, the 24th. So literally 2 weeks from today, Gamescom will start. That is the E3 of Europe, essentially. And I'm sure we'll learn more about new games and things like that as well. And then our final bit of gaming news. EA and the NFL have renewed their partnership for several more years to host esports events for Madden, essentially NFL. That will take place during the NFL season as well. Anyway, let's talk about TV. I know Sandman started this past week. I have yet to start watching it, so we will talk about it next week. So just bear with me on that. We've learned that HBO Max and Discovery Plus will officially merge next year sometime. They plan to do it by the summer of next year. And then other countries and regions will follow by that. And later in 2024 eventually as well. It probably won't have HBO in the title. No pricing has been learned. It will have a free ad-supported space as well. But we'll see what happens with that, because Discovery Plus is a lot cheaper than HBO Max. That's for damn sure. So I wonder what they'll do for people who have that, or if maybe they'll bring down the price of HBO Max or whatever the new service will end up being called. We'll just have to see as time goes on. Let's see. Netflix has been ordered to pay its writers or other writers of television shows $42 million in residuals. They've lost a case against the Writers Guild of America. That was arbitration started by them that started over Bird Box. Essentially, it's, quote, Netflix argued the WGA should not accept a substandard formula the company negotiated with DGA and SAG-AFTRA. After a hearing, however, an arbitrator determined differently, that the license fee should have been greater than the gross budget of the film. So that includes Bird Box, other things, and now $42 million to other writers and things like that. So yes, they need to treat everyone equally over there. Rosario Dawson was being asked about potentially returning as Night Nurse. I can't think of her character's name. But she said on Twitter, she had said something about, Claire Temple, that's the character's name. Something about playing Claire Temple again in a Punisher series, or John Bernthal was coming back, but it turns out that wasn't the case. On Twitter, she said, quote, "Getting intel from fans during signings is iffy, apparently. My bad. I get excited. Confirmation is key when you're told what you want to hear. I can't be trusted. Getting intel," I can't be trusted. Anyway, unquote. Interesting, though. She said she found out the day before, but it turns out that wasn't entirely true. I don't know why you would believe a fan when you are like an agent. You have like an agent that would tell you these things. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see John Bernthal enter the MCU. It's just, I think we have to wait a little bit longer for that. HBO Max, we're going to talk about that a bit today. More cancellations have been announced. Strange Adventures, the show that Kevin Smith was producing based on Adam Strange, for a DC cartoon, was canceled. Obviously, he's not as upset about that as some other things because he knows that wasn't going to be as important as some other things. Obviously, Batgirl, and we still don't know what other shows might get the axe that haven't been announced. We know that Peacemaker Season 2 is safe, as well as some other James Gunn projects. But allegedly, the Black Superman show, the Supergirl movie, hold on, what else was it? Just several other DC shows may have been canceled. Potentially even the Green Lantern show, the Static Shock movie. No word yet, but Greg Berlanti and James Gunn projects are still safe. So that's the Blue Beetle movie. Whatever else James Gunn was working on other than Peacemaker Season 2. We don't know, though, entirely everything just yet. Brian Baumgartner, who is famous for playing Kevin on The Office, is writing a chili cookbook that you can pre-order now. And features just over 100 chili recipes that he highly recommends. So obviously Kevin in The Office is famous for dropping his chili in the main walkway, but now you can read about Brian's favorite chilies and make them yourself. We've also learned the Golden Globes is coming back to NBC after deciding to not air them last year due to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's just despicable practices. The 80th awards will air on NBC in January of next year. The 79th, of course, was not on the air. If you remember correctly, it was due to their controversial business practices and things like that. But NBC is under the impression that they will reform themselves. But we'll see if that actually happens. It's also been announced that Keanu Reeves will have his first major TV role in quite some time, as he is joining Hulu's adaptation of Devil in the White City. No word yet on who he'll be playing or anything like that, but that is a period drama. But he is joining that program, which should air on Hulu, I think, next year or the year after, depending on production and things like that. And final bit of TV news here, especially regarding Hulu and Disney Plus. It has now been announced that they will both be getting massive price hikes. Disney has also announced a new ad-supported tier. Disney's ad-supported tier will cost $8. What is this? The ad-free version, which is then going to increase to $11 a month. That's a $3 increase, which is insane. Insane. That's wild, considering they have so many subscribers. Hulu will jump $2 a month from $12.99 to $14.99 on October 10th, which is wild. Disney's doesn't go into effect until December. And then their ad-supported version, Hulu with ads, which is what I have, will go from $6.99 to $7.99. Disney Plus has 151 million subscribers. However, Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus are apparently lost $1 billion for the conglomerate. Yet they're very successful in terms of the amount of people that watch their shows and things like that. So it's very interesting to see that they're losing money, and then they're going to raise the price by that much. They're going to lose people that way. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for TV. I do want to get into movies here. Is Eternals getting a sequel? I hope not. I hope they just get referenced or utilized, because no one talks about the giant fucking, celestial sticking out of the Indian Ocean. Anyway, Patton Oswalt seems to hint at a potential sequel. Lady Gaga has been officially confirmed for Joker 2. Still a movie I don't understand why we're getting made. In an interview with Empire Magazine, Gwendolyn Christie expressed a desire to play Captain Phasma again in Star Wars. She would gladly suit up in the Nubian shiny armor. Why can't I think of that word today? Platinum armor. Seth Rogen's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie is officially named Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem and will release on August 4th, 2023. I'm very excited for that. Giancarlo Esposito has made known that he has spoken with Marvel, and he is also very, very vocal about the fact that he wants to play Charles Xavier, Professor X, in a potential X-Men movie. I would welcome that. I think he would kill it in the role. And then Top Gun Maverick has officially passed Titanic at the domestic box office, which is a wild thing to say. That is crazy. It is now the seventh highest grossing movie ever at the U.S. box office, earning $662 million. This is, of course, per Box Office Mojo. Titanic is still outpacing Maverick outside of North America with $1.5 billion at the international worldwide total of $2.2 billion. So obviously we haven't gotten there yet. Avengers Infinity War is just barely past it at 6th. But we'll see what happens. Internationally, because it's not really that much of an appeal internationally. I mean, there is. It's Tom Cruise. But again, it could be different things. So we'll see. Speaking of Tom Cruise, him and Christopher McQuarrie are working on a project because Tom Cruise wants to play Les Grossman again, the character he portrayed in Tropic Thunder, the somewhat overweight, balding movie producer. I would gladly take a movie where Tom is Les Grossman, just the entire movie. Please, please, please. Sonic 3 has been announced for December 2024. So it will be going up against one of the Avatar sequels. I think there's an Avatar sequel. Yeah, 2024, because it's 2 years. Prey, which premiered on Hulu this weekend, a movie I didn't get a chance to watch just yet. The Predator prequel has become Hulu's biggest premiere ever. It has broken Hulu's records for most watched premiere for a single release, for beating film and TV series. and it was the most watched film premiere on Star Plus in Latin America and Disney Plus in territories where Hulu or Star Plus are not available. We don't have hard data for it, but Prey is getting great reviews everywhere, as well as getting high praise from stars of the original Predator film as well. I hope to watch that this weekend. John Wick 4 has been announced to be the longest film in the franchise, which means it will have to be at least over 2 hours and 11 minutes long, which is what John Wick 3 was at the previous holder. And then, before we talk about Bullet Train, yes, I did see Bullet Train this weekend, let's talk about Warner Brothers and DC, because a lot of things have been going on. First, let's just do a recap. Of course, Batgirl was canceled last week, out of nowhere. The directors of the film shared an image of Michael Keaton in the Bat costume. Kevin Smith has come out and called it an incredibly bad look. On his Hollywood Babylon podcast, had this to say. He said, quote, "It's an incredibly bad look to cancel the Latina Batgirl movie. I don't give a shit if the movie was absolute fucking dog shit. I guarantee you that it wasn't. The two directors who directed that movie did a couple of episodes of Miss Marvel, and it was a wonderful fucking show, and they had more money to do Batgirl than they had to do an episode of Miss Marvel and stuff," unquote. He also made some other comments about, but they don't cancel The Flash. We've learned a little bit more as to why Batgirl was canceled. And this was a direct quote from David Zaslav himself, who is the new CEO of the new company. He said, quote, "We're not going to release any film before it's ready. We're not going to release a film to make a quarter. We're not going to release a film. The focus is going to be, how do we make each of these films, in general, as good as possible? But DC is something that we think we could make better, and we're focused on it now." And unquote. That was during an earnings call. He's also said they have a 10-year plan, which isn't the first time Warner Brothers and DC have said this. He also said, quote, "We think that we could build a long-term, much stronger sustainable growth business out of DC. And as part of that, we're going to focus on quality," unquote. He also went on to say that they, quote, "looked hard at the direct-to-streaming business. There's no comparison to what happens when you launch a film in theaters. This idea of expensive films going direct to streaming, we cannot find an economic case for it. We cannot find an economic value for it. So we're making a strategic shift. Our focus will be on the theatrical," unquote. That doesn't make sense. So just release Batgirl theatrically. If it's good but not terrible, it will make back the $90 million. Like, let's be realistic. Like I said, they want to announce a 10-year plan. Now we're learning that, like I said, Supergirl can be in trouble, the movie starring Sasha Calle, which is in development, because she is playing Supergirl in the Flash movie, if I'm not mistaken. I don't understand. We don't know if that movie's even happening. We know Joker 2's happening. We know the Batman is getting a sequel. We know the Green Lantern project is still in the works. Aquaman 2 is still happening. The Flash is technically still happening. We're getting Shazam 2 and Black Adam. And speaking of Black Adam, we've now learned that DC Films president Walter Hamada has pretty much gotten ready to quit DC and Warner Brothers. He will now stay on, though, until the release of Black Adam in October. And per the Hollywood Reporter, he didn't even know that Batgirl was being shelved until he was at a test screening of Black Adam. Was not consulted, was very angry over this. He's the head of DC Films, and the CEO of Warner Brothers just kind of said, nope. He spoke with counsel about quitting. He's putting everything on pause. He doesn't want to create any other turmoil or tension. But again, it apparently all of his other projects have been put on hold or canceled as well. It's also being rumored now that Zaslav wants to continue the DC universe as is, technically the Snyderverse, if you will. Not exactly the Snyderverse, but parts of it. And that makes sense, theoretically. I mean, DC can pull off the multiverse, I think, a little bit better than Marvel can, just because it's always had its own multiverse, if you will. And it's kind of been there for a long time. I mean, everyone knows Crisis on Infinite Earths to a point. The Arrowverse had it. Apparently Walter Hamada was working on a version of that to reboot the films after The Flash. That's apparently been canned now as well, though. So we'll see. Other rumors are floating around that there is a new post-credit scene that was added to Black Adam that ties into the larger DCU universe as a whole, which is technically the Snyderverse, even though Jim Lee said they're not going to do that, which it seems like a lot of things have been made after Comic-Con decisions. Idris Elba wants to fight Superman on screen, so technically that would be Henry Cavill's Superman. I don't know what's going to happen with The Flash now, because Ezra Miller has officially been charged with a felony and a felony burglary. And this is in Vermont. I think they finally arrested them, excuse me. And they will appear in court on September 26th. So we'll see what happens with The Flash. I so just want that movie to come out. People are just saying it must be that good that Warner Brothers is willing to risk it all to still release that film. Obviously, last week we talked about how, Ben Affleck is coming back again. So that's I'm happy to hear that. We're also learning that if they do continue this universe, maybe Henry Cavill's back as Superman. If Henry Cavill's still willing to do it. I don't know what's going on over at Warner Brothers and DC. They have these tentpole characters. They don't know what they're doing with them. They keep making all these bumbling mistakes. I think if you released Batgirl on HBO Max, it still would have done decent enough. I mean, you could have released it in theaters as well. Now I'm hearing stuff that maybe Warner Brothers films might not go to HBO Max 45 days after release, which is, if you have this streaming platform that you run, A, why are you taking stuff off that was made specifically for it? B, why do you make this whole thing about, hey, you can watch our movies here first, and then not put the movies there? It's just, they're making very strange decisions. And part of that is because Zaslav was running Discovery, and this dude goes from making documentaries and reality shows and other bullshit to now running like a major studio. And obviously that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because some people can go from jobs that have nothing to do with the film industry and then coming in and running studios very well. It's all interesting. It's just frustrating because I'm a huge DC fan, and like, they have so much potential. The Snyderverse has potential. Yes, there's been missteps and things like that. I don't know how a company that has had premier franchises for quite some time seems to just be not able to do it anymore. And I don't know if it's because Toby Emmerich was such a problem. I don't know if it's because Walter Hamada was in over his head. So many things have happened, and it's not great, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm still excited for Black Adam. I'm still excited for Shazam 2. I can't wait for Aquaman. I do want to watch The Flash, even if Ezra Miller is a huge problem. I mean, I am smart enough to understand, like, hey, they are a good actor and they can give a great performance, but they are also a garbage human being. I do it with Kevin Spacey all the time. Kevin Spacey is one of the greatest actors of the 20th and 21st century, but he's also a piece of shit. So, I can understand that. Like, I can disassociate the things and still be okay. People can do that. It's an interesting situation for sure. That's it, though, for movie news. I do want to talk about Bullet Train, the new movie starring Brad Pitt, Brian Tyree Henry. I can't. The guy who played. I can't think of that guy's name. But Joey King is in it as well. A couple unknowns. Aaron Taylor Johnson, that's his name. Michael Shannon is also in it. He plays the villain. Sandra Bullock is in it in a small role. That was Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny's in it. No shit. Hiroyuki Sanada, who you guys might know as Scorpion in the Mortal Kombat movie from last year. He's in it as well. The movie's great. It's directed by David Leitch, who is famous for being the co-director of John Wick with Chad Stahelski. He also worked on Atomic Blonde. He directed Deadpool 2. He's just known for great action movies. Bullet Train is top-tier action movie. Was great. All the jokes landed. A little graphic, maybe for kids. I mean, it is rated R. A lot of F-bombs as well. And it does a lot of this fun storytelling where you meet a character and then it shows you how they've interacted with each other in the past. Zazie Beetz is in it, and her character is very interesting in how it plays out. Then there's a lot of like back and forths with timing and stuff like that. Reminds me a lot of a Steven Soderbergh film, or like the Ocean's films, but more graphic and profane, to use the proper terms, and more heavy on the action, of course. But overall, I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't go in with a very high bar. I didn't go in with a low bar. I just went in with like, all right, this movie looks cool. I'm excited to see it. And it delivered on that in spades, right? It, like I said, the jokes land. The interactions with all the characters are very well. The story itself is really cool. I do want to read the book now. It is based on a book that called Maria Beetle by Kotaro Isaka. Oh wow, that book's that old. It's been translated finally in English. Was translated last year. That's why they called it Bullet Train. And it's just like I said, it's funny overall. The way they portray the characters and everything is really fun. It's a very colorful movie. The music in the movie is great, and just there's everyone is a standout. And Brad Pitt, honestly, this is probably now my favorite Brad Pitt movie. And he's been in really great films. This is definitely my favorite one, though, now. For me, it's an 8 out of 10. Probably one of the best action movies of the year, bar none. I think you guys should check it out, even if you weren't thinking about it. But it's definitely a fun movie to go see. I think it took the weekend with $30 million, or just over $30 million. And it went up against Easter Sunday. Don't look at the Rotten scores. Don't go off the cinema scores. It is way better than those things give it. It's got a very Kill Bill feel to it even. It's just fun, like I said. And definitely check it out. 8 out of 10, Bullet Train, David Leitch, Brad Pitt, great film. That's it, though, for Nick's Nerd News this week. Thank you guys for listening. That was episode 222. Today is August 10th, 2022. Thank you guys for listening. As always, check out nixnerdnews.com where you can listen to the show on the go or right in your browser. You can find links to our Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and the like. We're there for your listening pleasure. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us a share, make a comment, upvote, downvote, thumbs up, thumbs down, however you guys want to do it. As always, I appreciate y'all. Also, while you're there at nixnerdnews.com, check out our social media tab where you can follow our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or you can see them all right there in one fancy place, all the feeds, or just search Nixner News on your social media platform of choice. And with that, I will catch you guys on the flip side.